I am sitting in a lawyer's office right now watching my wife Jessica across the table with her attorney. She has that confident look on her face, the kind that says she thinks she has already won. 2 weeks ago, she filed for divorce, probably thinking she would walk away with half of everything I built. What she does not know is that I figured out her plan 2 months before she even made her move. I saw the signs, I did my homework, and I took action. And now, as she sits there believing she is about to cash in on 7 years of marriage, I am just waiting to watch everything unfold. She has no idea what is coming. Before I tell you how I protected everything I built, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you have ever felt blindsided by someone you trusted, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is going to show you exactly how I turned the tables. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Jessica and I had been married for 7 years. We met at a tech company in Portland, Oregon back when we were both just starting out. She worked in marketing, pulling in around $30,000 a year, and I was a junior software engineer making about $45,000. We were young, ambitious, and genuinely happy. After 2 years of dating, we got married in a simple ceremony by the Columbia River. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family, the kind of wedding that felt real. Our early years together were good. We lived in a small apartment in downtown Portland, splitting rent and dreaming about buying our own place someday. I remember those Saturday nights when we would cook dinner together, usually pasta, because it was cheap and easy. We would watch movies on our old couch, take walks along the river every Sunday morning, and talk about our future. Life felt simple and honest. By year 3, things started to change for me professionally. I got promoted to senior engineer, and my salary jumped from $55,000 to $90,000 a year. Jessica was happy for me, or at least she seemed to be. 2 years after that, I made another big move. I left my stable job to join a startup, taking a risk that paid off. They gave me equity in the company, and my total compensation hit around $120,000 annually. Jessica stayed at her same position, making about $45,000. I never thought much about the money difference. We were a team, or so I believed. With my increased income, we finally bought a house in the suburbs. $350,000, a modest 3-bedroom place with a backyard. We put down $50,000 and financed the rest, paying about $2,000 a month in mortgage. It felt like we were living the dream. I was proud of what we had built together. But then, about 2 months before everything fell apart, I started noticing changes. Small things at first. Jessica became distant, less interested in our conversations. She used to ask me about my day, about the projects I was working on, about the people at my startup. Now she would just nod and go back to scrolling through her phone. I tried not to read too much into it. People change, relationships, go through phases. I told myself it was probably stress from work. One evening, I made lasagna her favorite dish. I spent 2 hours preparing it, layering the pasta ricotta and meat sauce just the way she liked. When I served it, she took a few bites, said she was full, and left the table. That stung more than I wanted to admit. The old Jessica would have finished her plate and asked for seconds. Then she started going to the gym. 3 nights a week, sometimes 4. Before this, she had never been into fitness. When I asked her about it, she said she wanted to get healthier, which seemed reasonable enough. But something felt off. She would take her phone into the bathroom every single time. She never left it lying around anymore. If I walked into a room while she was texting, she would turn the screen away or quickly close whatever she was looking at. One morning I came into the kitchen while she was typing on her phone. The moment she saw me, she locked it and set it face down on the counter. I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled, said it was just work stuff, nothing important, but her voice was different. Strained, rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. That was when the unease started creeping in. I tried to shake it off, but I could not ignore what I was feeling. Something was wrong, and I needed to know what it was. The answer came on a Friday night. Jessica said she was going out with an old friend for dinner. I stayed home planning to catch up on some work. While cleaning up the living room, I found her purse on the sofa. She had left in a rush and forgotten it. I was not snooping, not intentionally, but when I picked it up to put it away, a folded piece of paper fell out. I opened it. My hands went cold. Written at the top was a Listhouse car savings his stock options. Below that, a name and phone number. Attorney Thompson consultation, Tuesday, 3 p.m. I sat down on the couch, staring at that paper. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Why would she need a lawyer? Why was she listing our assets? I pulled out my phone and searched for Attorney Thompson Portland. The first result told me everything I needed to know. He was a divorce attorney, and his website boasted about protecting wives' rights in high-asset divorces. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. For a long time, I just sat there holding that piece of paper, trying to process what it meant. My wife, the woman I had spent 7 years building a life with, was planning to divorce me. And she was doing it in secret, calculating, making lists of what she thought she deserved. I did not confront her. Not yet. I needed to think, to plan. I put the paper back exactly where I found it, inside her purse, and tried to act normal when she came home later that night. She walked in smiling, told me about dinner at some new Italian restaurant downtown. I asked how it was. She said great, gave me details about the food, the atmosphere. But I noticed she did not smell like garlic or wine. She was lying. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my head. The distance, the phone hiding, the gym, trips, and now this. She was not just unhappy. She was strategizing. And if I did not do something, I was going to lose everything I had worked for. The next morning I started digging. I checked our joint bank account online and found something strange. Jessica had withdrawn $500 in cash twice over the past month. She never used cash. We put everything on credit cards for the points. Why the sudden need for untraceable money? I remembered we had a shared laptop that Jessica used to watch Netflix. I opened it up and checked the browser history. What I found made my blood run cold. Searches for how to prepare for divorce in Oregon, community property laws Oregon, and hiding assets before divorce. She had been researching this for weeks, maybe longer. I needed to know more. The following Tuesday, I called in sick to work and drove to the address listed for Attorney Thompson. I parked down the street far enough away that I would not be noticed. At exactly 3 p.m., Jessica pulled up. She got out of her car, walked into the building, and disappeared inside. I sat there for an hour and a half watching the entrance. When she finally came out, she was carrying a thick folder. Her face looked determined, focused. She got back in her car and drove away. I took a picture of her entering the building just in case I needed proof later. Then I drove home, making sure to arrive before she did. That night, she acted completely normal. She asked me about my day, made small talk about a project at work, even suggested we watch a movie together. The whole time I was screaming inside. She was playing me, setting me up for an ambush, and pretending everything was fine. I knew I had to act fast, but I also knew I had to be smart. The next day, I called my friend Marcus. We went to college together, and now he was a corporate lawyer with a solid understanding of family law. We met at a coffee shop on the east side of Portland. I told him everything. Marcus listened carefully, then leaned back in his chair. He explained that Oregon is a community property state, which meant everything earned during the marriage gets split 50-50. The house, the cars, the savings, even my stock options in the startup, all of it would be divided equally if we divorced. I asked him if we had a prenuptial agreement. He looked at me and said, "Do you?" I shook my head. We were young and in love when we got married. We never thought about protecting assets. Marcus sighed. Then legally she is entitled to half of everything you earned while married. I did the math in my head. The house had about $200,000 in equity after the mortgage. My stock options were worth around $200,000. We had $50,000 in savings. 2 cars worth about $30,000 combined. Total net assets roughly $580,000. If we split that down the middle, Jessica would walk away with close to $300,000. Money I earned money. I worked 80-hour weeks for while she stayed in the same position, making $45,000 a year. Marcus could see the anger on my face. He said, "If you suspect she is planning this, you need to act now, but you have to do it legally. If you hide assets illegally, you will lose everything in court and possibly face criminal charges." I asked him what I could do. He thought for a moment, then said, "Move your assets legally before she files. You can gift money to family members, invest in protected business entities, or transfer stocks for estate planning purposes. But you have to do it within the next few weeks, and you have to make sure everything is documented properly." That same week, I started executing my plan. First, I called my older brother Daniel, who lives in Dallas, Texas. I explained the situation, and he agreed to help. Together, we formed a limited liability company, or LLC, for real estate investment. It was a legitimate business venture. We filed all the paperwork with the state of Texas, paid the fees, and opened a business bank account. Then I transferred $100,000 from our savings into that account as my investment capital. Next, I contacted my mother, Helen, who lives in Eugene, Oregon. I told her I wanted to start estate planning to reduce future tax burdens. Under Oregon law, you can gift assets to parents without needing spousal consent. I transferred my $200,000 in company stock options to her name, filing all the appropriate gift tax forms with the IRS. Everything was above board, documented, and legal. Then I dealt with the remaining savings. I took $20,000 and bought short-term bonds under the LLC's name. Another $15,000 went to a registered charity, which gave me a tax deduction and was completely legal. I left $15,000 in our joint account so it would not look suspicious. As for the house, I could not do much since it was in both our names. But I did stop making mortgage payments from our joint account and started paying from the LLC, instead documenting it as a business expense. I completed all of this within 10 days. Jessica had no idea. She did not track our finances closely because I had always handled the money. Every night I came home, cooked dinner, watched TV with her, and acted like nothing had changed. 2 weeks after I finished moving the assets, it happened. I came home from work on a Friday and found an envelope in the mail. It was from the Multnomah County Court. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage. Jessica was filing for divorce. I opened the document and read through it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Petitioner, Jessica Mary Thompson. Respondent, Rufus Allen Crawford. The reason listed was irreconcilable differences. No mention of infidelity, no mention of specific grievances. Just a cold legal phrase that meant we were done. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee staring at those papers. Part of me felt devastated. 7 years of my life gone. But another part of me felt strangely calm. I had been preparing for this moment for 2 months. I knew it was coming. That evening, Jessica came home with a suitcase. She set it down by the front door and looked at me. Her face was blank, emotionless. She said, "I am sorry, Rufus. I cannot do this anymore. I have filed for divorce." Her voice was cold, clinical, like she was reading a script she had rehearsed with her lawyer. I asked her why. What happened to us? She said we grew apart, that I was always busy with work, with my stock options, with my startup dreams. She said she needed someone who was present, someone who prioritized her. I knew it was nonsense. She was giving me a rehearsed excuse to justify what she had already decided months ago. I asked her directly, "Is there someone else?" She hesitated, then said, "That is not the point. The point is, we are done." I did not argue. I just said, "Okay, I will contact a lawyer." She seemed surprised by how easily I accepted it. She said her lawyer would send over a list of our assets, and we would divide everything fairly. The way she said fairly with that little smirk told me she thought she had already won. She grabbed her suitcase and walked out. She told me she was staying with a friend. I watched her leave, close the door behind her, and drive away. I sat there in the silence of our empty house, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. The next Monday, I hired an attorney named Gregory Walsh. He was in his early 50s with 30 years of experience in family law. I met him at his office downtown, a sleek building with a view of the Willamette River. I laid out everything for him. The timeline, the discovery, the asset transfers, all of it. Gregory listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he asked to see my documentation. I handed him copies of the LLC formation papers, the gift tax forms I filed with the IRS for the stock transfer to my mother, the investment receipts for the bonds, and the charitable donation records. He reviewed everything, then looked up at me with a slight smile. He said, "Smart move. Did you do this before or after you knew she would file?" I told him I suspected something was wrong 2 months ago. I moved the assets 3 weeks before she filed. He nodded and said, "Technically, this is legal. Oregon law allows you to gift assets to family members and invest in legitimate business ventures. The timing might raise questions, but if we can prove you had legitimate reasons for these transactions, we can defend them in court." I told him I had documentation for everything. Email exchanges with a financial advisor from 3 months earlier discussing estate planning, a detailed business plan for the Texas Real Estate LLC, copies of the bonds and charity receipts. Gregory said, "Good. Her lawyer is going to fight this hard. They will claim you hid assets to avoid division. But if we can show legitimate business and estate planning purposes, we have a strong defense." A week later, Jessica's attorney Thompson sent a formal request for full financial disclosure. I submitted exactly what remained in my name: the house with $200,000 in remaining mortgage debt, the 2 cars valued at $30,000 and $15,000 in our joint savings account, no mention of the stocks or the other money because, legally, they were no longer mine. They belonged to my mother and the LLC. Thompson called Gregory the next day. I could hear the anger in his voice even though I was not on the call. Gregory told me later that Thompson demanded to know where the stock options went, where the other $50,000 in savings disappeared to. Gregory calmly explained that I had exercised my legal right to gift assets for estate planning and invest in a legitimate business. All transactions were documented and filed with the proper authorities. Thompson threatened to take it to court, claiming I was hiding assets. Gregory said, "Go ahead, we will see you there." 2 months later, we were in court. The Multnomah County Courthouse, a large building in downtown Portland. I sat next to Gregory at a long wooden table. Across from us, Jessica sat with attorney Thompson. She looked confident, like she still believed she was going to walk away with half of everything. The judge was a woman in her early 60s named Patricia Morrison. She had a reputation for being fair but tough. Thompson went first, presenting his case. He argued that I had deliberately hidden assets in the weeks leading up to the divorce filing. He showed bank statements proving I had transferred $200,000 in stock and $50,000 in cash to family members. He claimed it was a clear attempt to avoid equitable distribution. Judge Morrison asked me directly, "Mr. Crawford, did you transfer these assets?" I said, "Yes, Your Honor." "But not to hide them." "I transferred the stock options to my mother as part of an estate planning strategy that my financial advisor recommended. I invested the savings into a real estate LLC with my brother in Texas. All of these transactions were legal and properly documented." Gregory stood up and presented our evidence. He showed emails between me and a financial advisor from 3 months earlier discussing the benefits of estate planning and reducing future tax liability. He submitted the LLC formation documents showing it was a legitimate business registered with the state of Texas. He provided copies of the gift tax forms I filed with the IRS proving the stock transfer was reported to the federal government. He even showed a detailed business plan outlining our strategy to purchase rental properties in Dallas. Thompson tried to counter, arguing that the timing was too convenient. He said it was suspicious that I moved all these assets right before the divorce. Gregory responded by pointing out that I had been consulting with financial advisors for months, long before I had any concrete evidence of Jessica's plans. He argued that it was my legal right to plan for my financial future, especially given the instability I was sensing in the marriage. Judge Morrison reviewed all the documents in silence. The courtroom was quiet except for the sound of her flipping through pages. After what felt like an eternity, she looked up. She said, "I find that the respondent acted within legal boundaries. The asset transfers were conducted through legitimate channels with proper documentation and tax filings. While the timing may seem suspicious, there is no evidence of illegal activity or fraud. The petitioner is entitled to half of the remaining marital assets, as defined by Oregon community property law." Jessica's face went pale. She turned to Thompson, whispering something I could not hear. He shook his head, clearly frustrated. The judge continued, The house, after subtracting the outstanding mortgage, had about $150,000 in equity. Jessica would receive half of that $75,000. The cars were valued at $30,000 total, so she would get $15,000. The remaining savings of $15,000 would be split, giving her $7,500. Total $97,500. A far cry from the $300,000 she had expected. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. The divorce was granted. Jessica sat there stunned, unable to process what had just happened. I stood up, shook Gregory's hand, and walked out of the courtroom. I did not look back. Outside the courthouse, the sky was gray, typical Portland weather, but I felt lighter than I had in months. As I walked toward the parking garage, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Jessica. She caught up to me, her voice shaking. She said, "You knew. You knew all along." I stopped and turned to face her. I said, "Yes. I knew 2 months before you filed." She asked how. I told her the truth. "You left your lawyer consultation note in your purse? You searched divorce laws on our shared laptop. You stopped caring about us. It was not hard to figure out." She stood there, tears running down her face. She said, "I thought you would fight me, make everything messy. I wanted to be prepared." I looked at her and said, "And I wanted to be prepared too. The difference is, I was smarter about it." There was no anger in my voice, no bitterness, just the cold truth. I had loved this woman. I had built a life with her. And she had chosen to plan an attack instead of having an honest conversation. She wanted to take everything I had worked for, and I simply protected myself. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing there in the rain. The first month after the divorce was hard. The house had to be sold. We split the proceeds, and I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment near my office. I got my stock options back from my mother. I got my money back from the LLC with Daniel. After paying legal fees and court costs, I still had around $480,000 in total assets. But it was not about the money. It was about not letting myself be used. I started running every morning, something I had not done in years. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during the marriage. One night, I met up with Marcus at a bar in downtown Portland. We had a couple of beers and he said, "You did the right thing, man. Protecting yourself is not wrong." I told him I knew that, but it still hurt. 7 years just gone. He said, "Sometimes people change. You cannot control that. You can only control how you respond." Those words stuck with me. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got news that changed everything. The startup I worked for had been acquired by a major tech company. My stock options, which I had transferred back to my name after the divorce, were now worth $500,000. The petitioner is entitled to half of the remaining marital assets, as defined by Oregon community property law. Jessica's face went pale. She turned to Thompson, whispering something I could not hear. He shook his head, clearly frustrated. The judge continued. The house, after subtracting the outstanding mortgage, had about $150,000 in equity. Jessica would receive half of that $75,000. She was with another man, someone I did not recognize. They were sitting at a table near the window. She looked up and saw me. We made eye contact. I nodded. She nodded back. No words. Just two strangers who used to share a life. I walked out of the coffee shop and into the cool Portland air. I did not feel satisfaction. I did not feel pain. I just felt free. I learned that love requires trust, but trust must be earned every single day. When someone stops fighting for you, they have already left. Protecting yourself is not selfish, it is survival, and sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is building a better life without them. If you ever feel like someone you love is slipping away, do not ignore the signs. Do not hope it will get better on its own. Face the truth, protect yourself, and move forward. Because at the end of the day, the only person who will always have your back is you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to protect yourself from someone you loved? Drop your story in the comments below. I would love to hear how you handled it. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that show you how to navigate the hard moments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you find the strength to protect yourself when you need it most. Stay strong, stay smart, and remember you deserve people who choose you every single day.